Nobody climbs Margo's Hill anymore. Not since 1947. Back then, it wasn't even called that. It was Glencoe Ridge. But after the mine collapsed and the valley went silent, the people of Drystone Hollow began calling it Margo's Hill, because Margo Price was the last person who said she saw the light come up from under it. They say the mountain remembers names, and when she speaks them back, someone always listens. My granddad used to say the mines were hungry. Every tunnel's just a throat, he'd laugh, and we're the ones feeding it. He was one of the lucky ones, retired before that last cave-in. Most of his friends didn't. When they closed the shafts, they welded thick iron plates over the mouths of the tunnels and smudged wet concrete around the edges like a coffin seal. For years after that, the hill hissed in the night, air shifting through cracks, rocks settling. You could hear it if you stopped talking long enough, but nobody stopped talking. They drank, shouted, worked, and married just to drown it out. Then, the glow began. Folks called it the funeral lantern. It crept up from the ground like moonlight under ice. 70 years later, a man named Eilard Haskins parked his silver pickup at the base of the hill. His family still owned a lot there, just trees and an old cabin falling into itself. He was supposed to clean it out, take photos for the realtor, and leave. Simple. Eli was a rational man. Data, charts, elevations. You know the type. People who speak in coordinates instead of emotions. The funny thing about coordinates, though, they don't warn you when you're walking into folklore. That first night, rain hit early autumn leaves like whispers. He sat on the porch drinking the last can of beer in the fridge that still worked, scrolling through the geological logs on his tablet. The company he worked for, Teradyne Energy, had just bought satellite time to scan Appalachia's remaining coal seams. His job was to review anomalies that might hide rare minerals. Out of curiosity, he plugged in his home county. The program returned a moving heat signature roughly 200 meters below the ridge, exactly where Glencoe Mine had been. The timestamp showed it pulsed every 10 minutes without fail. Eli zoomed in and whispered, "That's impossible." Next day, he went to town. Drystone Hollow had shrunk to a general store, a post office, and a diner that survived on coffee thicker than sin. At the counter sat Sheriff Alder, slow-moving but sharp under his hat. He remembered everyone. "Lord, if it ain't Sonny Haskins' boy. You finally come to claim on ghost property?" Eli grinned. "Just visiting, doing some mapping work." The sheriff leaned back. "Mapping, huh? Don't let your gadgets point you near Glencoe. Hill's dangerous, still shifts sometimes." Eli decided not to mention the pulse. On his way out, the old cashier, Miss Leona, called after him. "If that computer of yours finds anything glowing up there, don't stare. Folks who do come back different, if they come back at all." Half warning, half folklore. He laughed politely, but that night he dreamed of green light dripping like water through cracks in the floor. He spent the morning hiking the slope. The air smelled like wet iron. Wildflowers grew in neat lines, too tidy for the wilderness. At the top, the old gate welded to a concrete wall, the steel plate spread across like a scar. When he knelt to photograph it, his compass spun half-circle on its own. All his readings jittered. "What the hell?" he muttered, checking batteries. Fine. Sensors, fine. Yet something underground emitted a trace electromagnetic field. He turned his camera toward the soil near the plate and snapped what he thought was quartz. Later on inspection, the stone glowed faintly from within. Not reflection, emission. He pocketed it.
Ever try reasoning with fear? It isn't loud, it's quiet. It sounds exactly like logic. Maybe I just imagined it. Maybe it's a mineral reaction. Maybe there's methane and phosphor. That's what Eli told himself over dinner. But every logical explanation ended in maybe. Around midnight, his geophone sensor triggered motion. 10 minutes apart, just like the pulse on the satellite map. This time, closer. He grabbed the flashlight, drove back up, ignoring the rain turning to fog. The dirt road curled like a question mark. At the top, his truck headlights bounced against the metal plate, and something shimmered under the ground. Imagine lightning in slow motion, a low green current sliding just beneath the surface, tracing veins through stone. "Jesus," Eli whispered. Then one of the lines forked toward his feet. A flash, then gone. When he looked again, nothing. The night smelled sweet, wet, rotten. He left. Back in the cabin, he replayed the audio files. Somewhere between the static came faint voices. Mineral fin, like tape distortion, forming syllables. He boosted volume, filtered noise. Clearer now. "We are still below, still digging." He hit pause. The words kept coming another 2 seconds after, no possible buffer delay. He tried editing again. Computer froze. Screen flooded green. When it rebooted, every file renamed itself Digging. He deleted them. Immediately, the generator shut off. Silence. Outside, the crickets had stopped. In the morning, Ms. Leona knocked on his door. She'd hiked all the way up somehow, carrying a boxed pie and that fire and thunder look that Appalachian women use instead of a sermon. "Boy, I know that curiosity look. Your daddy had it before the mine fell." Eli helped her sit on the porch. She told him a story about her brother Walt, who died in the collapse. Every year on the same date, she dreams of him standing outside her window, hands black with soot, whispering, "It ain't dark down there, Leah. It's bright." She looked at Eli's pale face and sighed. "You found the brightness, didn't you?" He didn't answer, but his pocket stone flickered faintly between his fingers. He tried to leave. Packed truck, road maps, keys, whole plan of pretending none of it happened. Halfway down the valley, he realized his hands weren't steering toward the highway. They turned back uphill. He wasn't choosing it. He shouted himself hoarse, yanked the wheel, finally swerved off into a ditch. When the truck stopped, the radio hissed. First static, then that same voice, calm, sexless. "The hill needs its miner. You still have hands." And all the dashboard lights turned green.
He ran. 3 days later, the sheriff organized a search because no one had seen Eli. They found his truck, but no man. Yet before that, before they realized he was missing, Eli had already gone underground. He brought rope, a small drill, and what was left of his resolve. Breaking open the old plate took hours. Years of rust turned it brittle. When the first crack split the concrete, warm air rushed out, smelling like salt and earth. Inside, the light was not a beam. It was a mist, a rolling luminescence that bent around objects, curling like fingers. He descended roughly 30 feet down the entry shaft, feet crunching over chunks of collapsed timber and stones that hummed faintly when stepped on. And then he saw them, shapes in the wall, not fossils, faces. Dozens pressed into the rock, eyes closed, mouths slightly open. The light streamed through them like veins in marble. Each face pulsed in rhythm. 37 of them. Eli whispered, "What are you?" The nearest face opened its mouth wider. Green spilled out like breath. Inside, he heard voices layering over each other, hundreds of whispers at once forming a single thought.
We did not die. We changed. He dropped the camera. The flash revealed more forms embedded in the ceiling, the floor, the walls stretching away into darkness. The rock wasn't rock. It was growing. Crystalline tendrils extended millimeter by millimeter, building tunnels without tools. The mountain was tunneling itself. Eli stumbled backward, his flashlight beam fractured against the shapes, multiplying until the whole corridor throbbed with color. Then the ceiling above him shifted, and something enormous exhaled. When the dust cleared, he found himself deeper, though he hadn't moved. The slope behind him had closed. He screamed. It came back to him through the stone like an echo inside a throat. Still digging, the hill sighed. They never found Eilord Haskins alive, but 2 months later, engineers mapping seismic activity noticed new subsurface vibrations under the ridge, steady, synchronized, predictable. They marked it as minor tectonic readjustment. Sheriff Alder didn't believe in tectonics. He and Miss Leona climbed the hill to check and found the steel plate resealed somehow, smooth as glass, new black ridges of material fusing metal to stone, no welding marks, no tool grooves. Leona pressed her ear to it. "It's breathing," she whispered. From inside, a slow thump. Rock dust trembled with each beat. She stepped away, pale as paper, and muttered, "He joined him." That was 3 years ago. Margo's Hill is still off limits. Time and the county fence can't stop the stories. Campers say they see the valley glow every few nights, soft green ripples moving beneath the soil. Sometimes the power in town flickers in time with it. Geologists measuring electromagnetic fields swear the patterns map out, like circuits. And lately, the pulses aren't just under the mountain. A farmer miles out reported that his basement floor lit up one night, bone-green cracks tracing toward his cornfield, then fading. He told the sheriff it looked like veins searching for blood. If you visit Drystone Holler today, the diner still stands. The cheapest pie is called Lantern Slice now, lime custard with glowing green sugar glaze, someone imported as a joke. Every autumn, tourists come asking about Margo's Hill. Locals just shake their heads. But some nights, after closing, Miss Leona walks outside to smoke by the porch. She gazes north where the shadow of the ridge splits the stars, and she swears, under the gentle hum of cicadas, she hears that same voice, soft, rhythmic, patient. We are still below, still digging, nearly home. Even now, when a storm shakes the hills, the earth sometimes pulses in green light. The mountain keeps growing, slow, invisible, alive. And if you ever drive those back roads on a fog-filled evening, and your headlights hit a shimmer under the ground, don't stop the car, because the hill might take you reflection, then your name, and make you part of the work. Still digging, still digging, still digging.
You ever notice how some roads just end too suddenly? One second you're cruising along a Blue Ridge byway, air thick with pine. The next, the asphalt dies, and you're on gravel that crunches like bones. That's how you reach Graven Ridge Motel. I know, the name already sounds like a red flag, right? But out here, names aren't chosen, they stick. The ridge was Graven long before the motel existed, named after early settlers who carved their family graves straight into the cliff face, so no one could steal the headstones. Romantic on a postcard, horrifying in moonlight. It's just 12 rooms curling around a sagging parking lot. Plastic sign half lit, V can see, the A long dead. If you drive by during daylight, the office looks empty. A bell on the counter, a jar of peppermints inside gone cloudy with age. But stay after dark and there's always one room showing a faint glow through the blinds. Room 6. When Caleb Wren,
freelance photographer for one of those Forgotten America YouTube channels, rolled in one September evening. He didn't plan on sleeping there, just needed shots for B-roll. Peeling wallpaper, bug light ambience, that kind of creep aesthetic viewers eat up. No phone signal for 10 miles. No other motels open. So yeah, he figured, why not? The man at the front desk was thin, polite, hollow-eyed. His name tag read Arthur. "Cash only these days," Arthur said. "Machines don't work when the mountain hums." Caleb chuckled. "That's some local weather thing?" Arthur smiled too long. "It's always weather, but the ridge likes to keep its guests." Arthur handed over a thick ledger instead of a registration form. Ink-stained, frayed leather, smelled older than the carpet. "Please sign. It'll know you're staying." Caleb flipped to the last page. The most recent entry said, "Tomorrow, 6 p.m., dated next day, name line blank." He lifted a brow. "You mean you already booked someone for tomorrow?" Arthur just slid the pen across. "Everyone writes their time." Caleb figured it was some quaint gimmick for nostalgia freaks. He scribbled, C.W. Wren, tonight, 9 p.m. Arthur closed the ledger carefully, like tucking in a sleeping child. Room 6 smelled like dust and flowers that died trying to bloom. One lamp worked, the air conditioner rumbled but didn't push air. Caleb set up camera gear, shot some B-roll corridor. The hum from the walls made each frame shimmer like heat haze. At 10, he sat on the bed watching raw footage on his laptop. Wallpaper pattern looked like vines, twisting, moving. Then came the knock. Gentle. 3 taps. He opened the door. Empty walkway. On the ground sat the guest book. Closed. He brought it in, heart rate climbing. Flipped it open. His name was still there, but below it, written with the same pen. C.W. Wren. Tomorrow, 9 p.m. Exact same handwriting. His.
He checked with Arthur the next morning. The office was locked tight, curtains drawn, truck gone. He left $20 on the counter and drove downhill, but every road looped back. GPS spun like a compass in a magnet storm. By noon, he sat in front of the motel again, sweating. Room 6's curtain moved. He could swear someone stood inside. He stormed in, camera rolling. The room was empty. Except the guest book lay open on the bed. Now there were 2 days' entries ahead, all with his name advancing by date. Tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. You might still find the footage. Police buried it in evidence. Frame 1. Caleb sets camcorder on nightstand, talking to himself. Okay, so either the caretaker's pranking me or I'm in some Appalachian Groundhog Day meets Blair Witch situation. I'll leave it running overnight. He laughs, uneasy, turns lights off. At 02:14 a.m., the door opens without sound. Camera doesn't pick up who enters, just motion blur, like heat lightning in the shape of a person. The lens warps, picture bends. Then the guest book floats half an inch off the table, flips a page by itself, ink writing in real time. Tomorrow, 9 p.m. Next shot, Caleb sits up, eyes wide, whispering, "No, no, no." Cut. Static. 2 days later, hikers found his truck crashed against a tree 5 miles down a service road. Airbags deployed, doors locked from inside. No body. The passenger seat, an open ledger. All names crossed out except one repeating line. Local paper printed it once, before the file sealed as Unsolved Disappearance. It read, C. Wren. Next check-in, pending. If you visit Graven Ridge Motel now, the building's half reclaimed by vines. Power off, windows broken. Yet people still swear they see faint orange light from room 6 around dusk. Urban explorers think it's reflection. Sheriffs think it's trespassers. Yet every few months, someone comes back with blurred photos, and always, in the center, there's that same thick ledger on the desk, open to the final page. Last year, a couple of college kids posted a TikTok from inside, giggling. Caption, Haunted Guestbook LOL. They show one of them writing their names, Jessica and Brett, tonight 11 p.m. Video cuts, comes back daylight, room empty, chairs toppled, voices panicked. Comments flooded asking if they were okay. Account went silent next day. Police searched, found nothing except the ledger with a new line added. Jessica and Brett, tomorrow, 11 p.m. Locals sometimes claim to see a man matching Arthur's description walking the ridge at dawn, carrying that same brown book pressed to his chest. They say he knocks on trailers and asks politely if anyone wants a room for tomorrow. One woman invited him in for coffee back in 2021, thinking he was some Jehovah's Witness type. Said his fingers were cold as paper and his eyes had familiar sadness, like someone who almost escaped. When she blinked, he was gone, left behind a register card that simply said, "The mountain keeps its records."
Some amateur folklorists tied it to old mining accidents, like there's a thin fault under Graven Ridge that messes with time perception. Others think it's paranormal bookkeeping. Every soul that dies passing through the ridge gets logged until the hill's debt is paid. Personally, I think the ledger's alive, because entries still appear in fresh ink. Last year, journalist Faye Nellis tried to carbon date a torn scrap police recovered back in the 90s, still wet 70 years later. Chemical makeup, iron, carbon, traces of hemoglobin. Blood. The ink's blood. 3 weeks before I recorded this story, a van disappeared along Route 19. Indie documentarians filming Appalachian ghost tales. Police found their camp gear beside that same gravel turnoff. Investigators counted 4 toothbrushes, 4 jackets, but 5 sets of footprints heading up to the motel. Inside the office, dust thick on everything, except the counter. There the ledger sat open. New handwriting, unfamiliar, fresh. 5 visitors, tomorrow midnight. Maybe you're skeptical. You should be. Ghost stories grow like ivy. They need darkness, time, and silence. But ask anyone old enough in Drystone County, and they'll tell you the same thing. Rooms can forget guests. Hills can forget towns. But ledgers never forget debt. So if you're driving those mountain switchbacks and you spot a rusty sign that flickers VKNCY against the fog, keep going. Because sometimes it really does have 1 vacancy left, and the book already knows your check-in time. Tomorrow, 9 p.m. sharp.
In the Appalachian foothills, where morning fog slides through cedar trees like memory, there's a town too small to have secrets, so its secrets wear faces. One of those faces belonged to a girl named Rosalie Keene. They say when the mine closed and the church burned and the train stopped coming, Rosalie's family kept the town alive by selling corn husk dolls. Plain little things, tied with twine,
No eyes, no paint, just husk and hair string. Until Rosalie made one that wasn't plain at all. Her father, Cyrus Keene, farmed corn on scarred soil where the mountain kept trying to take back the land. Every August, he harvested enough to fill one wagon, never more. He called it the tax the ridge charges. Rosalie helped shell, sort, and dry the husks for winter. That's when she started twisting them into shapes, miniature people, their forms neat and perfect. The neighbors bought them at market fairs. "You've got steady hands, Rosie," they'd praise. "These fellas almost breathe." She'd just smile, that distant kind of smile kids get when they're listening to something no one else can hear. One afternoon, a storm tore across the hollow so fierce it uprooted trees like weeds. Afterward, Rosalie found a patch of corn flattened in a strange spiral. In the center lay a clump of wet earth, pulsing faintly green. She scooped it up, thinking it was lightning glass, ran to show her father. He told her to throw it away. She didn't. That night, she mixed that glowing soil into the husks as she wove a special doll. Not for sale, for company. At first, the doll felt warm in her palm, as if remembering sunlight. She stitched with thread from her late mother's spool, black silk older than Rosalie herself. She gave the doll a name, Marge, short for marginalia, she said, her mother's favorite word. Within a week, neighbors noticed Rosalie talking to someone while walking the fields at dusk. "She's got an imaginary friend," teachers said. They didn't see that she was carrying a bundle wrapped in cornleaf cloth, whispering to it. Then animals started vanishing. Squirrels, hens, one shepherd dog. Folks blamed hawks, but Cyrus Keene's barn stayed lit all night, curtains drawn. One morning, he came into town, pale as ash, holding that doll in both hands. It didn't look like corn silk anymore. Looked like skin. Thread veins crawled up its arms. The face, once blank, bore faint features. Eyes shaped exactly like Rosalie's. He said, "It grows when she sleeps." They called Dr. Havens, who refused to cross the fence line halfway up Keene Hill, claimed the ground breathes wrong. So Reverend Miller went instead, Bible in pocket, curiosity in heart. He found Rosalie singing by the well, soft, broken tune. The doll sat beside her, hair damp, mouth moving. Reverend asked if she knew the Lord's Prayer. She smiled. "She already prays for us." He left before sunset, quoting nothing, hands shaking like leaves.
Soon as word spread, the town divided. Some said Cyrus Keene practiced old mountain charm work, mixing soil with blood for prosperity spells. Others said Rosalie was touched by angels, or worse. They avoided their farm after that. No one saw the doll again until September's harvest fair. Keene family showed up like everything was fine. Cyrus silent, Rosalie carrying a basket full of dolls, each painted now, delicate, lifelike. Townswomen admired craftsmanship until they noticed something unsettling. Each doll bore features of actual neighbors. One lady found hers wearing identical earrings. Another had a mole on the same cheek. When the mayor finally picked one up, its head turned slightly toward him. He swore it blinked. Laughter covered fear for about a second. Then the wind hit. The whole row of dolls leaned the same way, like plants bending toward light. Inside the basket, at the center, sat a larger doll, Rosalie's Marge, half her face shaded darker, as if halfway between husk and flesh. Minutes later,
Smoke poured from the keen booth. Somebody knocked over a lantern, they said. But the flames burned blue and green. Rosalie stood in the middle of it, holding Marge tight. Witnesses claimed she didn't scream. She just whispered, "My turn." When the fire ended, nothing left but charcoal and a single catch of corn growing where no corn should, inside the fairground gravel. People plowed it under quick. They found Cyrus's boots outside his farmhouse door next morning. Boots. Just boots. Winter came early that year. Snow fell thick, muffling the hollow. Children still told stories that if you left corn husks in a circle on your windowsill, Rosalie's doll would watch your dreams and keep you safe. But a few claimed otherwise, that anyone owning a Keen doll woke to find straw in their bed and tiny black stitches along their wrists. The sheriff collected what he could, burned them behind the station. Next morning, every ash pile reformed into dolls again, smaller, but smiling. He buried them 6 feet up the ridge. A week later, corn sprouted from the graves, though it was February, frozen ground. The stalks grew eyes, tiny glassy seeds shaped like eyes, following the sun. Decades passed. Town renamed itself New Harlan to shake old legends. Time papered over what it couldn't understand. But one spring, developer crews came surveying those old fields for a highway project. A bulldozer pulled up clod after clod of brittle roots until it hit something solid. They thought it was wood. Then the foreman brushed dirt aside and found hundreds of small husk figures, perfectly preserved, teeth of corn kernels glinking. Each figure had a name burned into its back. One named repeated dozens of times, Rosalie Keen. The crew chief pocketed one to show his daughter. He never made it home. Cab found empty, seatbelt latched. On the dashboard sat a doll, half husk and half living skin, wearing his uniform tag.
Nowadays, antique pickers on the Appalachian Trail whisper about the Rosalie Keen corn dolls. Each supposedly grants protection for a price. They sell online sometimes when someone gets desperate. Always come with odd warnings. Don't feed after midnight. Keep from firelight. If it breathes, bury it. But collectors can't resist. One vlogger, screen name Hollow Faye, filmed an unboxing 2 years ago. You've seen the clip. She opens a wooden crate, laughs nervously, says, "Smells like old corn." 2 minutes in, her camera shakes. You hear knocking, though her hands never move. She turns toward the door, whispers, "There's a girl outside asking for her doll." Video stops. Account deleted next day. I went looking myself, foolish as every ghost storyteller before me. Drove where old maps marked Keen Hill, nothing but thorns now. But when I stepped into what must have been the barn's foundations, heat rose under the dirt, steam with faint scent of burnt sugar. Then I saw her. Small at first, like a figure in dust, corn leaves wrapped around a little spine of wood. But as I watched, the husks tightened, reshaping. She lifted her head, eyes 2 black kernels gleaming wet, voice as soft as rain through stalks. "Are you here for a doll?" My foot slipped backward. I nearly fell. Again she asked, the voice layering, girl and woman together. "Or are you the next one?" Then everything went dark, like the hillside blinked. Every September, New Harlan holds its Harvest Fest. Kids string corn husks, braid dolls for prizes, none of them knowing the story behind it. At closing, they crown Queen of the Corn. Last year's photo, archived in the paper, shows a shy kid smiling, clutching her handmade doll. But zoom in on that picture, and you'll see something no one noticed then. The doll's hand resting against the child's wrist, pressing too deep. By dawn, the girl went missing from her motel room. All they found was a pile of dried leaves on her pillow. And imprinted in the dust beside it, 2 identical sets of footprints, one small, one smaller, both walking toward the field. So if you ever buy a handmade cornhusk doll at a mountain fair, make sure it's faceless, because once the face takes shape, it remembers who gave it breath. And somewhere under the soil, Rosalie's still weaving. One doll left to finish. The last one. Maybe yours.
There's a saying in these mountains, every tune's got a grave, and every grave keeps humming. Most folks smile at it, think it's just poetry. But around Coal Run Gap, they whispered that one musician proved it true. His name was Alton Rea, born with calluses instead of baby fat and a fiddle tucked under his arm before he could write his own name. The kind of boy who learned melody before manners. By 19, he played to packed taverns, bow flying like wildfire, tunes sharp enough to strip paint. Then he left for Nashville and never came back. Until 50 years later. The year he came home, the town had barely a heartbeat left. Coal dried up, kids moved on. Only one bar still standing near the river, the Blue Lantern. Alton stepped inside carrying a battered case, white hair nearly glowing under the neon beer sign flicker. Didn't order a drink, just asked the barkeep, "You still got the phonograph machine I left back when the hills were younger?" Turns out yes, gathering dust in the back room under decades of cobwebs. A brass horn bent like a wilted lily, and a wax cylinder labeled Rhea, Song for Return. Nobody remembered recording it, not even Alton. They set the cylinder on, wound the crank, the room filled with soft crackles, like rain on tin. Then came not a fiddle tune exactly, but a hum of space, low, rising, falling, as if the air were warming itself. Customers went quiet. Halfway through, the lights dimmed, glasses on the counter shivered. The recording popped once, and every clock in the building stopped, hands frozen at 9:07 p.m. When the song ended, normal sound rushed back. Laughter, radio, breath. Alton smiled thin. He said, "Always did like that key." Then he pocketed the cylinder and left. Next day, buzz went around. Folks swore their radios kept tuning themselves to a dead frequency somewhere between AM stations, playing that same low tone. Dogs wouldn't stop whining. A mail carrier said the hum made the asphalt ripple, like water seen wrong. By the third night, windows in every house rattled on the same beat. Sheriff Lovins went looking for the source. Found Alton at the old church ruin up the ridge, spinning his wax cylinder on a hand-cranked gramophone, eyes shut. No bow in hand. The fiddle strings were glowing. "Mr. Rea," Sheriff Lovins said, "folks can't sleep with that racket." Rea didn't respond, just kept drawing a line across invisible strings in the air. Then, snap! The gramophone needle broke itself off, flew straight into the dirt, upright, as if hammered. Sound stopped. Alton whispered, "She don't like being interrupted." "Who's she?" He looked straight through the sheriff. "The mountain. Every coal town has got a tavern prophet, gray as ash. Here that was Harlan Pickett. He told the sheriff, 'Boy, that song's older than Rhea. It's a climbing song. Miners used to hum it when they dug. Said if you play all its verses right, time will unravel like bad thread.' Sheriff said, 'Time doesn't unravel.' Harlan smiled that sad way tired men do. 'Son, round here everything unravels. Rope, veins, years. Ask any widow.'"
3 days later, Alton called a gathering at the closed mine's mouth. Said he was going to finish what was started. Half the town came, out of loyalty, curiosity, or boredom. He set the wax cylinder on a fresh recorder he'd built from scrap metal and phonograph parts. The machine whined. He tucked the fiddle under his chin, and the mountains remembered him. When Bo touched string, sound came not from wood, but rock. The ridge itself vibrated, low enough to churn stomachs. Air thickened, color drained like old film bleaching. People at the edge of the crowd backed away, clutching ears. Their watches spun backward, second hands clicking against the glass. Children cried. Then Alton's voice cut through everything. "She's answerin'. Here?" And far below, under their feet, came an answering hum. Not echo, but a second verse. Witnesses, what survived them, say the sky bent inward that night. Stars looped like scratched record grooves. When Rhea stopped playing, the ridge stood taller by a full 10 feet, geologists later measured. The gathered crowd? Gone, except anyone standing entirely outside the cave's shadow. Inside remained only the gramophone, wax cylinder melted into a puddle, and a faint whisper caught on Lovin's body cam mic. "Play it again tomorrow." Except tomorrow never came. Calendar pages in Coal Run skipped a date. Newspapers printed August 18th to August 20th, no 19th. Computers froze. Even satellites registered a blank data gap over that longitude. Folks who remember the missing day describe flashes, green dawn, rivers running uphill, people walking backward mouthing words they hadn't yet said. And through it all, a fiddle line, perfect and endless, circling just below hearing. Months later, a drifter boy around 10 turned up knocking on the church's old door, said his name was James Rhea, carried a miniature fiddle carved from bone, told the sheriff he was looking for his grandfather. "Where you from, kid?" He shrugged. "Below the mountain. We're still tuning down there." They placed him with foster folk. He never aged a day in 5 years, just kept rewriting sheet music that shimmered and slid off paper like liquid mercury. When federal researchers finally reopened the mine to study anomalies, they found an underground chamber, a natural amphitheater, with walls smooth as glass, lined by fossilized wax grooves, a million tiny concentric rings like phonograph records carved into stone. Sound analysis showed each ring corresponded to frequencies matching Alton Rhea's fiddling, only 10 octaves lower. They called it geosonic imprint anomaly. Locals called it the mountains record. Every attempt to replay samples resulted in corrupted digital files full of reversed breaths and one clear moment of speech. Not done playing.
Last winter, a video surfaced on dark web archivist forums, timestamped Aug 19th, 2023, the date that shouldn't exist. Frame 1, a room blanketed in dust except for a single fiddle case. Frame 2, hand opens it. Inside, a half-melted wax cylinder. Frame 3, on-screen text typed by the uploader. Restoring grandfather's song. When the audio plays, background clutter fades, replaced by a low hum too deep for laptop speakers. Anyone who listened through reported the same odd occurrence. Clocks jumping back 3 seconds, then forward 5, as though correcting. Channel vanished overnight. But for 1 hour, everyone who'd watched reported hearing faint tapping from walls around them. Metronomic, patient, waiting for tempo. Harlan Pickett, before passing, said this to a radio interviewer. "The mountain ain't cruel. She just ain't deaf no more. Every pickaxe, every hymn, they've been beating rhythm into her for centuries. Rhea just gave her the chorus." He coughed, smiled small. "And if she keeps singing, maybe that lost day'll stretch long enough to fit us all inside." He died mid-sentence. Tape recorder near his bed captured faint strings beneath the wheeze. Composers from Berkeley and Knoxville keep trying to transcribe the phenomenon. One claims each tremor frequency forms perfect harmonic ratios, like the mountain truly plays itself. Another insists the waves encode human voices sub-audible, layered with reversed syllables matching miners' names from a 1911 death ledger. They think the entire ridge became a recording medium, sediment as wax, tectonics as stylus. And in that recording, time isn't linear. It loops back, over and over, every repetition squeezing another breath from the listeners. 2 months ago, FEMA crews sealed the cave with cement again, warning locals away. The same night, all their equipment clocks reset to 9:07 p.m. Next morning, the seal had hairline cracks pulsing faintly when microphones approached. Vibrations measured exactly 440.0 hertz, concert A. Perfect tuning. That's where I come in. I'm a sound archivist. I drove down last week with fancy mics and skepticism packed neatly beside my fear. Set up camp near where the river hums in resonance with the ridge. Got my recorder running. Thought maybe the legends exaggerated. Then, at 9:07 p.m. sharp, wind froze solid. Water in bottles rippled backwards. From the hill, a note bloomed, low, patient, older than language. My waveform monitor started writing letters instead of peaks. P, L, A, Y. Then silence. I looked up. Across the hollow stood a man with a white head of hair and a fiddle hanging loose in one hand. He smiled like someone finishing a verse. "Your turn," he said. And before I could answer, the sound began again from inside my recorder, though it wasn't powered. They'll tell you echoes fade, but some don't. Some dig. The mountain is still humming tonight, soft underfoot, like a cat's purr. If you drive through Coal Run Gap and your car radio catches a station you can't find twice, let it play. Don't touch the dial. Because silence up here ain't emptiness. It's just the moment between verses.